What's up, everybody? How's everyone doing today? You are watching or listening to this episode of I-84, the Baseball Fanatic. And today we're going to talk about a new stadium that we hadn't talked about before. We have taken a bit of a hiatus from this show, as to say that we were kind of like working on a lot of other options, a lot of, not option, a lot of projects, I think you should say, that have several different options with it and everything. We are currently, myself and the old co-host of the ID84 show, Adam Mallet, we're doing a weekly show for the Newport Girls Collegiate Baseball team, and they are in schedule right here for you. Um, Basically, the NECBL, all over New England. We do a weekly show talking about what's going on with the team and what is going on with the players and the league itself. So we've been doing that since February. So we're taking a little break from ID84, the Baseball Fanatic. But I think this might be officially episode one because I believe we kind of had a pilot episode that didn't really work out very well, and we had tweaked it a little bit. So hopefully this kind of takes it off a little bit. But those who are not familiar with me or who I am, my name is Oddie84. I am a baseball fanatic indeed. I've been to every Major League Baseball park, for the most part, that ever existed. Obviously, post 1990. There's been, let's see, Turner Field, Old Yankee, Shea, um, Arlington. I think there's only been four. Oh, and Dolphin Stadium. So there's been five stadiums in which I've been to that no longer Major League Baseball stadiums. Uh, been to Oakland twice. We took the family out there this past April to see the Coliseum because this is the last season they'll be playing out there in Oakland. They're going to Sacramento next year for a year, and then they will be playing in Las Vegas once that stadium is complete. So I actually do hope to get out to Sacramento, even if it's just for a quick weekend when the Red Sox are out there, just to see, even though it's a minor league stadium, just to kind of check it out and see what it's like. Um, It'll be an interesting experience seeing a major league team. Although when we were at um, the Oakland A's game, there weren't very many people there in the first place. So uh, I would imagine that since Sacramento basically only has a um, minor league team, that having a major league team pop in would be actually very interesting. In fact, if you don't know the history of Sacramento, they actually started building a stadium. So there is a basketball arena called something Sleep Time Arena or something like that, or I forget the name of it. I watched the documentary, but they have an arena where the Kings used to play. And when they built that arena, they also started building a baseball stadium next to it. And there's a tunnel that connects the two. And obviously, the baseball stadium was never complete. You could actually see the remnants of the tunnel going into the arena. That kind of just just blocked off. But they were building a stadium to try to lower the Oakland A's there years ago. This was like late 80s, early 90s. And they never finished the stadium and just stay there abandoned right now. So now there's a barely built baseball stadium and an abandoned basketball arena still there in Sacramento. And this is not where they're going to be playing. They're going to play actually. They left. That's they this, I believe that the minor league team in Sacramento actually plays like closer to downtown where the basketball team eventually moves. So something to look forward to next season when that starts, and maybe hopefully seeing another stadium technically, because it would be technically a Major League Baseball stadium, I guess you could say. Also in the news, there's rumored that the Texas Rangers will be playing the Atlanta Braves at Bristol Motor Speedway in Bristol, Tennessee. And if you don't know much about what this is, Bristol Motor Speedway is a very small, I believe it's like a quarter, I think it's a half-mile track. So it's like very condensed, very steep bankings. It's essentially about the size of a college football stadium. You know, what I mean, you could that has a racetrack inside there, basically a little stretched out, obviously for the dimensions. But they will be hosting a game. I don't know if it's a game or a series next summer, and of course, us being a Braves Red Sox family, and the wife being from Tennessee, and us already going to Bristol as the University of Tennessee play Virginia Tech in a game many years ago, for a college football game. This would just have to add on to the adventure of seeing a baseball game inside a a baseball game inside of a racetrack, if you will. And it should hold a hell of a lot of people during the game, because during the football game, I believe they had about 117 to 120,000 people of it in attendance. And it's interesting because we went there about it was 2017, and the area of Bristol wasn't quite built up yet. Since then, they've actually built a casino. They've added some hotels. We actually had to stay at a campsite, and we slept in our van, which was an interesting way of doing it. But it worked. We made it work. So no complaints there. It was a fun time. So that'd be interesting to see a baseball team there too. But what I wanted to talk about was one of the first stadiums I went to um, that wasn't Fenway Park. In fact, this was probably, I'm doing the math in my head right now, probably the third or fourth stadium I've been to. It no longer exists anymore. It's a defunct stadium, and the stadium is Shea Stadium in Queens, New York. Um, a lot of fun facts about Shea. When it was built, it was in the time of the concrete donut construction, where they were trying to build these giant concrete donut stadiums in which would be able to take football and also take baseball in at the same time, and other uses as well. And the intention was to, obviously, where the Jets played at Shea for many years before they went to the Meadowlands, is to do something like that. And we've seen this in St. Louis, we've seen this in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Oakland. Um, Cincinnati has a similar setup. It's just to name a few. The Dolphins, obviously now Miami when they got Marlins and whatever. This was a common practice in the 60s and 70s to save money. In fact, the city of Boston actually had a proposal for the Boston Dome, which would have been built in South Boston, and it never ever materialized anything more than just kind of a draft on paper. But the Boston Dome would have been a giant dome stadium that would encompass the Red Sox, the Patriots, the Bruins, and the Celtics all in one place. Because at this time, the Red Sox were playing in a stadium that was, at this point in the 60s, was 50 years old. The Garden as well, where the Bruins and Celtics play, was getting up there in age. It's probably about 50 years old at that point. The Patriots never had a home. They played at Fenway Park, so this would have been a stadium to have in downtown. It's good they didn't, because the modifications they made with Fenway, the Patriots got a nice new stadium. They moved down to Foxborough. It all changed a little bit. So, and obviously the Garden, fairly new, 30 years old at this point. So it's kind of good they didn't build a dome. It would have been really weird playing dome baseball in Massachusetts. In fact, they probably would have already got rid of that dome at this point, because it probably would have not have worked out very well. But Shea Stadium, when it was originally designed, it was supposed to be a concrete donut. And if you look at pictures of Shea Stadium, the concrete, the stadium, the seat and everything stops at each foul pole and continues around, having the entire outfield open, which I think they had some bleachers in right field. The scoreboard was in center with the apple that popped out with the bullpens and everything like that. The initial design was intended to continue that complete circle around to accomplish about 80,000 fans when it was done. It never got to that point. I think it was in the 50s or the 60s for its capacity for the stadium during its time when the Mets played there, and also the Jets from several years. It was a cool stadium. I remember going. I'll tell you, we went a couple of times. More than a couple of times actually. Let's see, I can get you the exact right here. So capacity was 57,000 for baseball, 60,000 for football. It was supposed to be 80 plus when it was completed, and it never got to that point. But it was a cool stadium because the stadium was built so steep. So I only sat up the upper deck. I went down to the lower deck, obviously, but I only sat up a deck. And you were like climbing a mountain. You were going at like a 45-degree angle to get to these seats. You were so close. You were so high in the air that the planes coming into LaGuardia Airport were flying over. And if you looked real close, you could see the rivets on the wings of the plane. You could see the pilot wave chairs that flying right by it. It was funny because you look at the stadium and it's like, wow, every 5 seconds you either heard a plane go over or you get the train go by, and just the traffic alone. But it was it was a sweet stadium. It really had a nice feeling in my heart, because basically, I'd go there regularly when I was dating a girl in Connecticut, and we would go to New York City and stuff, and you could get tickets for like $5, $10, right? I seen the first game. I seen the Dodgers play the Mets there. I seen the Cubs play the Mets there, and I seen the Phillies play the Mets there. So I think I've been there all 3 times during uh, the length of the stadium. There was one time we took a bus from Boston, really early in the morning, like 5:30 in the morning. We got to New York like at 4:30, and I mean, went there. It was at 5:30. We got to New York around 9:30. It was about a 4-hour bus ride. Got into Manhattan, and there was a 1 o'clock Cubs versus Mets game. And I was always a little bit of a Mets fan growing up. I don't know why. I think it was just the closest National League team. I was really into National League ball. I'm more of a Braves fan now these days when it comes to National League ball, but it was just a really cool day. It was me and my cousin and one of my buddies, and we just jumped on the train and we jumped on the bus and went into New York and stuff. And we had a good day of just drinking, hanging out, getting to the game. It was a beautiful Thursday. I remember specifically. Went to the game 4. I think we jumped on the it had to be like, if the game was over at 4, we jumped on like the 6 o'clock bus back to Boston. We're back home by 9. It was one of those things. 9, 10 o'clock at night. We were home enough that we had work and school the next day. Um, but it's like memories like that. I remember going to a game in September towards the end of the season against Philadelphia. Um, and that was a cool game. That I got tickets for free. Actually, I had like a credit card that gave me free Mets tickets and everything. And just like the whole location was really cool. Like just the distinct colors of the stands. You had the orange down below, and then the blue and the green, and then the red up top. Um, and it was weird because the back of the stadium was facing New York, so you really couldn't see the skyline. Sitting in the seats for the most part. Look at that picture right now. Yeah, they had the scoreboard in right center. They had some bleachers in left center. And then the apple was kind of right center-ish right there. This is actually a picture I'm looking at right now. When they were building City Field, which was basically abutted as close to the stadium as possible, um, when they were building that, which is pretty interesting. And then they knocked down Shea and they built the parking lot there. But you really had, if you were sitting in the upper decks, you were really far away from the action, and that's the problem with these concrete donuts. When they built them, they had to your upper deck, you were so far from the action on the field. Even when football was going here, you were pretty far from everything. Obviously, in football, they brought some seats in for the game, but for the most part, it was tough. If you were sitting in the orange section down below, you were pretty close to the field. There wasn't a lot of foul territory in Shea Stadium. In fact, once you got past the dugouts, it was very narrow triangles in order to get any out. So it was a really good batter's park. No obstacles, nothing obscure about the stadium. It was basically let's see if I can zoom in. It was 410 to center, 350 to left, and I can't tell what right was. Actually, I can tell you right now. I can bring it right up. It was definitely a hitter's park. Some great hitters played in that park right there. It was all right. So it was the left field was 338. I'm sorry. Right field was 338, and then center to center. So it was like a perfectly shaped diamond baseball park, if you will. Um, it was a hike to get up to the upper deck. I'll tell you that much. The stadium was definitely old. It was definitely dated. It needed love that obviously the Mets weren't going to give because they're obviously building a new stadium eventually next door. We had a lot of good times there. Let's see. The first 4 World Series were played at Shea Stadium, 1969 Miracle Mets. They swept. Well, actually, no, they took 4 out of 5 against the Orioles. 73. A's won 4-3 over the Mets in 1986. Obviously, remember that one. The Mets beat the Red Sox in 7 games. That one's close to my heart. And in 2000, they lost to the Yankees. So for World Series, the Mets were 2-2 at the stadium, which is pretty cool. I think they only played 1 World Series in Citi Field, and I believe they lost to the Royals in 2015. And that was a Mets team that was on fire for most of the season and had so much time off because the Royals played right to the end. The Mets, I believe, they swept or took 5 games in the NLCS. So The original name of the stadium was the Flushing Stadium, and it's funny because I just brought up a picture right here, and it shows the stadium in football arrangement. So they actually built the stadium so that usually when they put a football field in a baseball stadium, it kind of goes from like center field is usually like the long end of the football field. The football field could actually fit as home plate was the end zone out. So you had fully surrounded seats all the way around, except for one of the end zones, which had minus seats. The rendering shows a lot more seats in center field, which they didn't have. They actually brought some seats onto the field when they had football configuration. But for the most part, see the Jets moved to Giants Stadium in 1984, so the Jets play there in 1984. In fact, they actually got the name. They're originally the Titans. They changed the name to the Jets because of the airplane stuff been flying into LaGuardia during the game. So that was kind of a cool little thing right there. Um, you know, I think they had. I'm trying to see if they had any. So they played in the NLCS 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times there. 69 obviously winning. 73 they won. 86 they won. I got confused. I seen the Houston Astros. I forgot they were in the National League back then. Um, 88 the Dodgers won. 99 the Braves won. 2000 the Mets obviously won because they went to go play the Yankees. In 2006 the Cardinals won. That was the last NLCS there at Shea Stadium. The Beatles. Let's see. Ceremony ended with Tom Seaver throwing up a final pitch to Mike Piazza, and then as the Beatles in My Life played in the speakers, two former Mets walked out center field and closed behind them, saying goodbye to Shea Stadium forever. This was their final night, with blue and orange fireworks in their eyes. So two legends, Mike Piazza and Tom Seaver, said goodbye. The Mets also, the Beatles also, I believe, played their first, I'm trying to think, it was either their first or last United States concert at Shea Stadium. Let's see. I believe I could probably bring that up right here. Concerts right here. The first one on August 15th, 1965. The Beatles opened their 1965 North American tour at Shea Stadium to an audience of 55,000 people. So they actually played their first concert ever at Shea Stadium. Um, Let's see. And Billy Joel in 2008 played their last concert at Shea Stadium. So things to know about that. I wanted to make one mention. Across the way is it's obviously located in Queens, Flushing, Queens, in New York. But you have and this is something you should check out. 'Cause it's still there, even if you go to Citi Field. Where they had the 1965 World's Fair is in that area. In fact, when you get off the train, if your back is to Manhattan and you go left, you go to Shea or Citi Field. If you go right, you go into where Arthur Ashe tennis stadium is, where they have the U.S. Open for tennis every year. And I seem to every time I've been to that Met Stadium, so I've been to City twice, I've been to Shea 3 times. I feel like or at least 3 out of those 5 times, the U.S. Open was going on when I went to a game. Just happened to be a coincidence that time in the summertime. So there's a lot of traffic on that 7 train going on to Queens, but it's definitely worth taking a look at. So you get off the train and you walk the opposite direction of Citi Field, cross the little bridge, you go into what was the World's Fairground, and that's where you have on Men in Black. You see those weird UFO shaped statues. Like those are actually observation towers. They're still there. You can't go into them structurally unsound, but definitely something to check out when you're there. You also see the big world fountain that's there when you walk down, and it kind of brings you back in time, the concourse of what you're walking in, of New York past when they used to have World's Fairs and stuff like that. It's just a great time, a great thing to check out. So get to the stadium a couple hours before the game. Get over there, walk through Arthur Ashe Stadium, and head over to the Olympic Park and check that out. All right. So that's my memories of Shea Stadiums. Please add what you remember of Shea Stadium below as well. It was a great park. Seen a lot of good games there and had a lot of good memories there. It was probably, it's probably the third or the fourth most visited park that I checked out over the years. I think it's probably fourth on my list. But definitely share your stories. Let me know what you remember about Shea Stadium. And this episode of ID for the Baseball Fanatic is done, and we'll see you guys soon with another baseball stadium story. So you guys have a good night, and we'll see you soon. Bye.